Wednesday. Let me turn off my notifications so we don't get ding-a-ling that here. All right. And according to my phone, we're also live because I still have, still have anxiety about doing the best show of my life. I'm going to be a blue screen on the other side. Happened once. That's all it takes.
Was it the best show of your life, though?
It was. It was like a really good, it was one of the ones I did in the SKILLZ members group. And I did just like bombs of information. And I went to go watch it and it was not there. I was like, and then I could never live back up to it. You know, you just get in your flow.
Yes.
All right. So good morning, everybody. By now, the broadcast is caught up a little bit here. So today we're going to be talking about being inclusive in our schools. And we're going to approach this really tactfully and probably not delve too much into the specifics of various diverse backgrounds. Those are decisions for you to make based on your ethics and beliefs. However, as educational facilities, we do try to find a way to make every student who attends our school feel welcome and empowered. And this can be, religion, it could be culture, it could be disability, it could be a language barrier. So there are a lot of reasons that maybe we want to look at our programs, our marketing, the way we speak, and even the teaching tools that we use in class to help kids connect with the knowledge that we're trying to explain. So I think the easy one to look at is if we start from the outside and we look at just our marketing, we want to make sure that all of our marketing is inclusive of the demographics in our community. Sometimes if you are struggling to get more people in, it's because you're being subtly exclusive. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's probably not the make it or break it, but it's just like another straw on that camel's back.
Yeah.
So I know, John, you're in a pretty diverse area, just like I am. How do you make sure that you're kind of aware of who's in your community and that you're speaking to them in your marketing?
Like for us, especially in our town, anywhere you go, you're going to see, like you said, the diverse, the melting pot that we have around here, right? And the biggest struggle, of course, is if you're following a certain person who's doing marketing, or if somebody's doing the marketing for you, you want to make sure that you're talking to them about, hey, when you do this ad, could you include these type of people in there, right? Like, for example, the plaza that we're in, right? Our plaza is primarily an Asian plaza. Okay, it's anywhere from Koreans to Cambodians to Chinese, just like seriously, all Asian. So we want to make sure we are able to hit that market in our ads. So, and you may not always gonna find an ad that's gonna speak to everybody, right? But be mindful that if this ad doesn't speak to these people, the next ad, make sure that it speaks to those people. So that way, when people are scrolling, like on your page or whatever, they're able to see the different diversities, the different ethnicities that you've got around in your area.
Yeah, that visual aspect is so important. I mean, that's your first presentation of your school and who you are. Mm-hmm. We live in a time where people love to be polarized. People love to hate. And we want to make sure that we're not feeding into that. We do a lot of it like with A/B testing as well. So we'll run the same ad with the same text, same graphic and everything, but the model that we'll have in that image, I have 3 different versions. Maybe I have that typically Asian child and maybe that typically European child, just to see like which one hits, because it's really not about me. It's what resonates with my community. Yep. And sometimes it'll vary, and I can always go in and adjust my ad budget. If one is doing really well that week, that's the one I'm going to leave running. I just want to make sure that there are visual options there. So yeah, I think that's a great one. And I love how you mentioned Communicating if you have people running your ads. It's very easy to pass stuff like that off, set it and forget it. But it is important to double check those things and make sure that, while I'm sure it's effective, the things that are being posted align with your brand, your culture. We use GoPro, and they've been great about making little adjustments for us as far as, we don't talk about martial arts very much. So they talk a little bit more about education, and they're really good about asking, what images do you want? So make sure you're having those conversations with your providers. I think one other aspect that we do, as for us, as we look out to our community, is recognizing that it's not just about what people look like, it's about their cultural backgrounds. We have a lot of Central American families, a lot of Caribbean families, a lot of Haitian families in our area, but also a lot of European transcripts who have come over for jobs. We have a national laboratory not too far away. So we have a lot of people who speak a bunch of different languages and who have different historical cultural beliefs about how to raise a child. It's very easy for us in the States to talk about connected parenting and positive parenting when we do our life skills thing, but we also have to make sure that we're not phrasing it in such a way that says you're wrong, because there are cultures who, not mindfully, but just culturally, take a stricter standpoint. It's been in for generations. So it has to make sure it's a track of educating, not about judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times you can get around that by saying, how about if I show you just a different way to approach this? Or, hey, have you read this blog that we just wrote? It might give you an idea of how to approach it differently, right? And that way you're not saying that what you're doing is wrong, because culturally speaking, hey, I know how us as Egyptians, discipline the children, right? Do you agree with it or not agree with it? I'm not going to get into that, right? But at the same time, there are different approaches. So
yeah,
I don't want to go down the road with any parent of, you as a parent, you're not doing it right.
And it's funny because every parent wishes they had help or had a manual, but no parent wants help or to be told how they're doing it wrong.
You're right. You're right.
Be so tactful. So as we look at, once we bring these people into our school, we've been, very diverse and making sure that we're attracting everybody in our community. Once we bring them into the school, we want to make sure that we approach it as, it's not my job to teach you about you. It's my job to help you discover yourself. And it may seem semantic, but the second option removes my judgment from it. And I don't mean my judgment as far as discernment. I mean my judgment, again, as far as, well, I don't agree with something. Because really, it's eventually going to be up to that child to live their life. So once we get them in the school, we want to make sure that we are there for education. We've had people come through our school who have learning disabilities, who have physical disabilities, who have different religions than us and maybe wear religious garments, or who are not comfortable with some of the practices that we have. And as long as it's not impactful in a negative way to the learning environment, we're okay with that. So what are some things that would come up that maybe wouldn't be impactful, but a lot of people get stuck on? One of the first ones that we notice is bowing. There's a lot of debates about twice a year in one of the bigger martial arts groups about, I have this family and they refuse to bow. Should I kick them out? And I get there's a certain culture of respect in our school. But we also have to acknowledge that we don't live in Japan. We don't live in Korea. And we don't live in the 13th century where if you lived in Japan and Korea, you only saw Japanese or Korean.
Yes.
We live in a very amalgamated society. So it becomes useful to look at why. So some of our Muslim students are not comfortable with bowing because they have beliefs that their only subservience should be to their religion. We have some Christian families that don't feel comfortable with bowing or to saluting a flag. We have some other cultures that are maybe not comfortable with bowing because of piety rules in their family. So we've always tried to find a way to come up with alternate ways to show respect.
Yep.
You know, and it's interesting because bowing is not culturally ours anyway. And I go both ways on that idea of cultural appropriation. But,
yeah.
You know, like we grew up in a society where you shake hands.
Exactly. And there are other places like the Mediterraneans or the Europeans when, you know, a guy could walk up to another guy and, you know, they'll hug each other and kiss each other on both cheeks. Like that's very normal. Here in the US, that's very not normal, right? You know, two women can do it to each other. Two guys won't do it to each other. Okay. Where in Europe, on the Mediterranean side, on the Middle Eastern side, that's very normal, right? Absolutely. So what is normal somewhere else may not be normal here, which is fine. But again, like educating them by telling them, you know what, Michael, we bow going into the studio because we're just paying our respect to the place. We're not bowing as in like it's a higher spiritual thing or whatever. No, it's just saying hi and hello. When we're bowing to each other, we're not necessarily saying like you're my master and I'm your slave or whatever. It's by simply saying hi and hello without touching each other. This is why, like, you know, people in Asia don't get sick, right? Because they're not constantly spreading germs by shaking hands, right? However, you don't have to do so if you wish not to. However you greet, however you want to greet, you can. So the only thing is when we're in class and we're bowing, if you just want to put your hand on your heart, if you just want to, you know, stand in attention position, whatever you want to do is absolutely fine. Because again, like, you know, remember the first show that we talked about and we're talking about tradition. You know, we do it out of, I don't know, a traditional thing that we've all, you know, done. Like, I've seen places where they just stand there and put their hands up and, you know, say hi or hello, whatever. So again, like we can change things. We can make it where the person gets the most important thing out of the class. And let's not get stuck on the quote unquote, you know, it is the martial art approach or the traditional approach.
Absolutely. I had a gentleman that I had the pleasure of training with. I won't call him my teacher because we don't have that relationship, but he teaches Kung Fu and African martial arts, which are fascinating to me.
Yes.
He's actually a very well-known, famous martial artist. And one of the things that he said is, you know, we don't really bow to one another because in my history, we've been slaves. And no man should be a slave or a master to another.
Yes.
So this is a cultural belief that he holds. However, he acknowledges the spirit of one another by opening hands and giving them of himself and receiving of himself.
Yes.
He says, this is more appropriate for me because this is a sharing, not a, so it's like perfectly appropriate because it still shows a lot of respect. So it accomplishes the goal.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I can show respect to each other without even having to shake hands, touch, or bow or whatever. Like, you know, do we have time to go around and do the fist bumps with everybody? No, we don't. We'll be wasting a whole lot of time in class, right?
Yeah.
Could we all just simply say feet together, hands out, like, you know, holding hands and then, you know, whatever, or air fives, or what? We can do it however we want to do it. Just get creative with it. See what's going to suit your community and just go with it.
The cool part about it is when you start doing stuff like this, kids are natural scientists, and there's going to be one kid that's like, how come he's not bowing?
Yep.
And it gives us an opportunity to now discuss it in a very safe environment. I've had some of the best conversations about race, inequality, religion, politics within the school. Now, not within class, but within the school with my training brothers and sisters, because it's a safe space. And I can ask, you know, a black man, what's it like to be a black man? And he'll tell me, and he'll ask me, what's it like to be a white man? But we can have these conversations. At the kids level, that might be a little much, but it opens that opportunity where I can now start to discuss, well, because that child's family has a different belief and some people just believe a little bit differently. Yeah. And then ask, what are some things that your family believes? And anytime we bring people closer like that, it's actually self-defense, because we're decreasing the need to have to go to war with people, in a philosophical sense, not necessarily go to war. We look at this same thing in the area of physical disability. Now, in the CPNS course, we had a challenge for some of the students of that course to post a video of them using some of the tools that we're speaking about. And Eric, at one of our SKILLZ ambassadors, posted a video of him working with a gentleman who was in a wheelchair. Now, I loved that because, first of all, Eric created an environment where anybody can be a student. Anybody, whether you're in a wheelchair or you have a mental or physical disability, he's willing to make you a student and to help you become better. The second thing I loved is, going back to the first idea, is he made that like publicly, this is my student. You didn't ask me for a specific student. You just asked me for a student, and I thought this was the best student to demonstrate with. So it's an opportunity that, when you think of the people that are video stars or influencers, it's usually that, the guy with the shiny smile and the muscles, or the girl that's very beautiful and popular. And Eric picked the perfect person for that drill. And it just happens to be someone in a wheelchair.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times, as we're looking into other schools and how they're doing their posts or their videos or stuff like this, they tend to keep on choosing the same person or the same select few people because they have the ability to perform. That could be an issue down the road, right? Because it could be looked at like, my gosh, I'm not this good. I will never be this good. I have certain disabilities, right? So maybe this is not the place for me. Where if you're able to be diverse enough to show the best of your students, and please use, like, I'm using this term loosely, and the not so best, I don't want to use the other word, I guess, the not so best of your students, it will allow people to understand that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay not to be the best at it. It's okay not to do the splits. You know what I mean? Like, let's take me for example, right? Been doing martial arts since I was 11 years old. 2013, I went and fought in a world competition. I slipped, I fell down, I tore my hamstring. Come to find out, 6 months later, my sciatica kicked in because of a 20-year injury that I had when I was 16 years old, right? There is no way I can perform like, quote unquote, a 6th or 7th degree black belt. You know what I mean? Because when you think of a 6th or 7th degree black belt, you're thinking, oh my gosh, their kicks are up here. They have this ability, they have that ability. No, at this moment, it's all about the wisdom and the experience that I have to defend myself and protect myself, not to be able to kick like I used to kick. You know what I mean? How about those who are born with certain hip problems? I've got a kid in our class. Lo and behold, he is in therapy since he was born, and he's 15 right now. His hamstrings muscles are not growing the way they're supposed to grow.
Well, we've talked before about, I have the one student that went to the more traditional Taekwondo school down the road, and he has, the shorter leg and the malformed foot. And the guy told him, why are you even here? You'll never do martial arts.
Yeah. Like, who are you to judge?
I mean, that's a loss on two parts. That's a loss for that child who is now had to deal with that. And it's a loss for the instructor, first of all, to have what has turned out to be a passionate and wonderful student to have in my classes. Fortunately, they came to us next, but also to have that revenue. I mean, face it, we're in business here. And now how many other people have you excluded in the community because you've shown that, I don't accept anybody unless they're perfect. We talked, about 2 weeks ago or so about branding. And we said that branding is all about showing people the version of themselves that they wish they could be and the path forward to it.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that we're showing them themselves, the not best students yet.
Yep. And you know what, Michael, you said something, and you said, I can't quite repeat it, but you said not the best. What? In other words, you're showing your top-notch people, right? You're showing those people, and you're not saying it out loud, that these are the people that I'm looking for. You know what I mean? But you are. So you're not saying it, you're not writing it down in your post. You're not, saying it, you're not verbalizing it, but your video is verbalizing it.
Yeah, Steve brings up a good one. If we judge potential students as they walk through the door, we wouldn't have many students. And you know what? That seems so obvious, yet so many schools do it. You hear it all the time in the martial arts community that students just aren't what they used to be. I want somebody who's going to be 100% committed before I ever accept them as a student. I hear this at least 5 times a day in the various groups, and even in conversations with my own friends. And it's like, if they were already what we wanted them to be, they wouldn't need me. And in fact, I'm a flawed man. I'd probably have to go learn from them.
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, it's been, 21 years since Jennifer and I have opened the studio. I can't tell you the number of times I have learned from those young students, probably more than they've learned from me.
Absolutely. So, speaking of the studio, let's talk about the training environment. One thing that I learned working in the hospital environment is this concept of universal precautions. So when HIV became a big thing, and then later as flu season started ramping up, they taught us that you have to assume that every single patient has HIV. Every single patient has the flu, because you can't look at somebody and say, well, you look a certain way, so you might have HIV. You sound a certain way, so you come from a community where the flu is going through it because they don't believe in hand washing or something like that. You just have to protect yourself by treating everybody exactly the same in a way that keeps you the safest, which then in turn keeps the patient the safest.
Yep.
We need to look at our schools kind of the same way, in that I don't necessarily, now I'm going to speak very generally here. I want to be clear that I'm being general, right? In general, we want to make sure that our entire facility is handicap accessible. There should be no difference in how somebody walks through my front door and onto my training floor, whether they're on their feet, on a crutch or a brace, in a wheelchair. Now, I said I'm being general because there are specific circumstances where maybe I will have a special class for people with specific challenges, or I might have a specific challenge with my building if there's a student with somebody that, there's something that's very unique. And it's just like, we didn't think of that. Yep. It happens. But generally speaking, you should be able to pull into my parking lot, wheel into my building. We have handicap accessible curb cuts and doors and everything, and a ramp onto the mat. John's school has an elevator out front because he's on the 2nd floor, so the stairs don't pose an obstruction to somebody getting into the school. I want to make it so that everybody can come into my school and train. If somebody has to do something wildly different, then there's something that I can solve there, that I can improve on to make my place more accessible. Same thing with when people say, do you teach special needs? Well, not really. I teach children. Come on in, we'll do an evaluation. And if I am a good fit for what your child needs, I would love to have your child in the program. It's not about, well, your kid can't do it, or your kid failed the eval, or your kid can't do what I need them to do in class. It's simply that we are probably not the best fit for your child's needs. It's about us. It's our fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very, again, it's very, like when we get that question, I answer it almost the same way like you do. And usually the answer is, do we teach people, who have special needs? Well, that depends. The best thing to do is to come in and let's see if we're the right fit for you. I don't say if you're the right fit for us. You
And
know what I
that's
mean?
not for just the special needs kid. That's
No.
all of our students start the same
Yes.
way.
Yeah. No. And then I go back and I say, are you asking me if I teach kids with special needs? Yes, we do. But it's a case by case scenario because we may not be the right fit for you guys.
Yeah, and I think they appreciate that, the opportunity. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I don't necessarily have any disabilities, and our kids are fairly normal, I guess, as far as kids go.
Yeah.
They're unique in their own ways. You know, but we don't have those challenges in my family. But you know, looking from the outside, it feels as if they do appreciate when we are inclusive like that and say, you know, oh no, you have asthma. You know, oh no, you only have one foot.
Yeah.
Versus, come on in and let's find out. You
Yep.
know, let's see what's what.
And special needs for every person is different. It's so different.
Yeah, even, you know, within a specific disability, that student's needs can be different. Even if we take disability out of it,
Yep.
you know, we run a systematized facility with a systematized curriculum. However, every child has different needs at different times. One child can have different needs one day than the next. And a lot of that is based on, you know, we've talked about like their Maslow needs and making sure they're fed and in a good mood and well rested, but also cultural differences. There may be cultural aspects that affect their needs just as much as maybe a medical disability or, you know, a learning disability type of thing. So here's a tough one. And, you know, this is one we'll be super, super tactful with. But in today's society, I think it's also important to have the conversation about what happens when one of your kids comes in and lets you know that they identify differently. Maybe they identify a different gender, different whatever. It's not up to me to judge. Have you had this happen yet in your school? Have you had to, you know, work through that yet in your school?
No, but you know, we're also prepared.
Okay, that's cool. A lot of people are having conversations.
Like a lot of the martial arts studios have the community locker rooms, right? And that, as easy as that sounds, as simple as it is for a lot of the school owners to do that, we have decided to create single changing rooms. Better yet, we've got 5 restrooms, so we really don't have changing rooms, right? However, if a kid does come in and say it's a boy that's wants to be identified as a female, we're going to respect that. There is no way, you know, it's going to be, well, no, we're not allowed. Because again, what are we doing that is so different from a boy would do or a girl would do? It's not like we've got boys martial arts training and girls martial arts training. We're not like a jiu-jitsu school, right? But yet we do some, like, you know, courage-based exercises where they would have to like partner up with somebody. Well, you're going to partner up with somebody anyway. But if you want to be called Jane and not Joe, well, so we'll let it be. Who are we to judge?
I look at it this way. If I can allow a 5-year-old to identify as a T-Rex during class,
of course.
What does anything else make a difference?
Yeah, like
I want to be seen as that place of when I don't feel good, I go to the school. You know, I go to the dojo, I go to the studio, because that's where I feel good. That's where my family is. So we make sure that we're very inclusive. If it comes up, and it's come up once or twice in our school, and we just say, you know, oh, I'm sorry, how would you like to be addressed?
Yep.
That's it.
I mean, if you're not utilizing your facility as a safe haven facility, then what's the point?
You know, I love that. Traditionally, especially in Chinese martial arts, a lot of school, well, they weren't really schools. They were usually
temples,
you know, like you know, facilities, hospitals. They served as a place of safety. If you were in trouble, you could go there and you could get healing or you could get help. So I try to bring that back in my own school, where when you come in here, I don't care if you're black, white, or yellow. I don't care if you're Christian or Muslim or Jewish or atheist. I don't care if you are male, female, or somewhere in between, you'll be safe here. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't see those things or recognize them, because we also don't want to whitewash everything.
Yep.
But when you're here, let's get you safe first, and then we'll figure the rest out.
I think the issue that a lot of school owners have is they bring their religion or their ethics or their everything in play. My religion says this, my belief says this, and therefore I'm not going to do that. I understand your religion. Trust me, I am a Coptic Orthodox. If you do your homework, it is literally one of the most strictest religions or doctrines in Christianity, right? And I've got my own beliefs, right? Yet I'm not here to judge. You know, my belief is my personal belief. It's my personal thing towards me, myself, right? I'm not going to bring that upon somebody else. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, how you need to believe, because let's face it, we all do some stupid stuff in our lives, and I don't care what your religion is, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Exactly. I don't care what your religion is. So you can't walk up to a person and say, well, you know, we can't accept you because of this. You just, I mean, you can, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you what to do.
I mean, there are some businesses that are doing good business on that. So there is something to be said for taking a stance, understanding that you're alienating half, but that you are enamoring the other half. And if you want to run a business like that, go for it. It's viable from a business perspective. From an educator's perspective, however, providing a safe place and a place where kids can explore who they are and their place in the world. I think that's where we decided to step aside from you know, that like I said, that judgment aspect of it.
And just think of that one day, that one time that person needs your help because everybody else is on them. Everybody else is bullying them. Everybody else is doing something, and they cannot reach out to their parents. Maybe their parents don't believe in them. Maybe whatever the case is. Just think of getting that phone call at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because we've dealt with it with some of our teens, right? Do you think I'm going to go with like, oh, Michael, I'm not going to come pick you up. You need to call your dad. No, I don't know what their life situation is at home. I don't know their environmental safety, right? So, you know, with that, be mindful. You're an educator. You're a role model. You decided to do this to change the world
for the better, hopefully.
For the better, yes.
Yeah, and you know, when I have discussions with people about how martial arts helps with bullying, it's very rarely about the physical self-defense, because I mean, realistically, throat punch the guy and it'll go away, but you can't really say that, and there's a lot of liability in that, and no, it's not the best solution.
Yep.
One of the ways that you deal with bullying and anxiety and things like that is by creating a strong social network outside of the public school classroom. Because when kids are in that classroom, it feels like those 30 other kids are the entire world. And if those popular kids in school hate you, that's it. You're nothing, and you may as well just go commit suicide, which is a very real topic for you to deal with in your schools.
Yep.
So when you now bring those children into your environment where they're mixing with different children from different families, from different school districts, we serve like 5 different school districts here, and there's something like 12 schools in each. So, you know, when we're bringing all these kids together, we're creating alternate social support networks. So now if I have a child who is physically or intellectually disabled, or has emotional challenges, or believes a different religion, or looks a little bit differently, and somebody gets on them at school, they know that they have people here that love them, accept them, and want them to be the best they can. And I think that should be the goal for our schools, to look around, to learn how to count to 10 in the language of the most minor of minorities in your school, and do it in class once, just to see that family's face light up, that
Absolutely.
you did that for them. To make sure that your bathrooms are accessible to somebody in a wheelchair. It might not be a student, it might be a family member. We've had several family members in wheelchairs, with one leg, so making sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to come into your school and to leave just a little bit better.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're having challenge with this, we'd love to hear from you. John has great school design advice that can help you create a more nurturing environment. We've both lived in different cultures and speak different languages, and I'm sure gone through that culture shock of moving from one to the next. So please reach out to us. We'd love to craft a more inclusive space.
Absolutely. Yes.
And of course, if I flubbed in saying anything, maybe I misidentified you today, please let me know. I can only learn a little bit more from it.
I think it was very well politically done.
Why, thank you. It's a touchy subject for a lot of people. It is. But it's one worth discussing, I think.
Yes.
All right.
You're welcome, Steve.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for joining us again. Oh, and Cheryl's here. Hi, Cheryl. I'm going to pop her up there, make her famous for a second. There we go. All right, everybody, go get to your week. We will chat with you again next week. Another great topic. Same day, same bat channel. Can you say bat channel without getting sued?
I'm not sure.
We'll find out because I just did.
Crush your week, everybody. Peace.
All right, go get it.